Okay, so Balance Manifesto, I did read it for the most part. I read the most interesting bits. It's been, what, 1.5 days since they released it? I think, wait, it was yesterday was full day and they released it day before yesterday, I think at 11 p.m. my time. Okay, so it's like 1.5 days. No, wait. Yeah, 1.5 days. 1.5 days. Okay. So 36 hours. And I've seen kind of like mixed reviews on social media. And because I'm just such a small target audience, right? Because I don't play a lot of builds. And also I don't min-max anything, usually. So for me, these things, like, they don't really influence my gameplay all that much, these balance manifestos. So it's good to always wait a little bit and see the reactions of other people. Still gonna check out some more peeps' ideas and such. Because first of all, I never played, so there's the two main takeaways we have from this balance manifesto is that it's about spellcasting, self-casting spells, okay? And the second one is bows, okay? And first of all, when was the last time I played self-cast spell build? I don't even remember. I mean, if Ignite Discharge counts, I guess, not that long ago. But that was more of an Ignite build. We are here today to discuss the game balance. And so definitely, I will be checking out people who are playing bows. I will be checking out their opinions. People who are mainly playing self-cast spells. Have to, to see all the sides of the story. Okay, so let's jump into it. In Path of Exile, Siege of Atlas, we're making a number of balance changes and have prepared this information for you to preview ahead of our official announcement livestream at the end of this week. Okay, that's happening in 2 days, guys. 2 days. The full details of these changes will be available in the patch notes and are still subject to change, but this post should outline our perceived problem with current balance and our intentions for their solutions. Okay, in general, we're focusing on 2 particular archetypes that we feel were the least competitive with other builds during Scourge. These are handcast spell builds and hit-focused bow builds. Player balance, hit-based spellcasting. Problem. Most hit-based spellcasting builds deal too little damage and have too few defensive and mobility options when compared with alternatives like traps, mines, totems, trigger skills, or damage over time. Solution. Adjust the hit damage growth of most spells. The majority of spells gain around 45% more damage at gem level 20, resulting in up to 60% more damage by gem level 25. Some spells have received smaller adjustments or no adjustment. These less affected spells are generally those that provide more mobility or supplemental damage through duration mechanics. Okay, that's fine. I mean, let's quickly check here's a selection of some of the skills that have been updated. Absolution. Wow, Absolution again. This is like the 3rd or 4th buff to Absolution, right? Arc, Blade Fall, Blazing Salvo. Oh, Blazing Salvo. Huh. Wasn't even that bad. Fireball, Crackling Lance, Divine Ire, Flame Surge. Now, you know what this... also... This whole statement here... well, not this sentence. This sentence. This sentence here... is kind of a bit nonsensical. Like, sure, where is this? Oh yeah, too little damage to have too few defensive mobility options. Okay, so that's not really, like, the problem was the Scourge mechanic. Why did channel skills or something that you can just throw and run and you didn't have to stand still work so well in Scourge? Because you couldn't fucking tank it. Even these builds that they show that these are like, oh, unlike self-casting spells were shitter, unlike these such and such builds, is because you didn't have to stand, most of the time, you don't have to stand still to do damage with them. That was the problem. It wasn't that these builds necessarily had more defenses. It's just that self-casting spells, you literally have to stand still to do damage. And that just didn't work. It was just a side effect of this league mechanic. So to me, this is not really the... Not saying that self-cast spells doesn't need love. Not saying that at all. They need love. But I don't necessarily think that you can just chalk it up to, these other things being so much better, or there's fewer options. Like, that has the same defensive options as other builds. It's just that this whole thing of standing still in nowadays in PoE is just not a thing. It's just bad. You don't want to stand still. Scourge was kind of fun, but it got stupid pretty quick. No, I liked Scourge. I think, but you needed to make a build force to do Scourge. You couldn't, like, do, I don't know, a Divine Ire, as an example. No matter how much damage you put on Divine Ire, if you literally can't one-tap everything, the first time you see them, before they even get to you, you're gonna die in Scourge. Because it's a channel skill where you have to stand still, like... I mean, unless they make the damage, like, insane. The Scourge monsters were so fast that if they get to you, they pretty much one-shot you. The scaling on Scourge monsters, if you tried full clear Scourge, right? So, yeah. Channeling skills, especially like something that you have to stand still to channel, is never gonna be as competitive as something that you can run around and kill stuff. No matter how much damage it has. So I'm thinking also, another thing this makes me think is that the new league mechanic is gonna be much more forgiving. The monsters in Scourge were really, really tough. I play a lot, right? I made a really dank character, and the Scourge monsters, you really had to be present. You had to be present for the league mechanic. You couldn't just mindlessly blow through it, so. But I think the biggest problem for them being so underrepresented, these builds being underrepresented in Scourge League, is because of the Scourge League mechanic. You don't agree most of the builds got nerfed too hard with the rebalance and or had too big of a mana cost? Sure, the mana cost thing also affected. I agree with you, Moon. Mana cost changes, trigger cost changes, all of those things affected. Also, Ignite nerfs, because I tested my Discharge Ignite character on Standard, and it was garbage. It was really, really bad. I tried Uber Elder, and I couldn't kill it. It was doing like no damage on single target. Allow casters to obtain more cast speed through the Runic Dagger mod pool, increase some cast speed values, and give rings and amulets additional tiers of cast speed modifier. This is good. Give Orb of Storm more damage and a mechanical redesign to solidify. It's a great supplement lightning damage skill. This is pretty cool. Orb of Storm build, let's go. Orb of Storm leveling, back on the menu. Okay, give Flame Blast, Lightning Tendrils, and Ice Spear some improvements to make them great skills for dealing high damage against single target. Arguably, Ice Spear was already doing good damage at single target. Improve many skills that rely heavily on unique threshold jewels to enhance their damage, and remove or change these jewels. For many such skills, this means granting more damage in exchange for efficient sorts of extra projectiles. This includes skills like Freezing Pulse, Frostbolt, Heavy Strike, and Cleave. For damage-focused spells, the result of these changes means that their damage has increased on top of the damage multiplier noted above. Wait. Improve many skills that rely heavily on unique threshold jewels to enhance their damage, and remove or change these jewels. For many skills means granting more damage in exchange for efficient source of extra projectiles. Unleash Okay, so they nerfed Unleash, but that's because everything else increased. Threshold Jewels, yeah. Unique Threshold Jewels are no longer offered as a quest reward for completed Death of Purity. Instead, you are now offered a choice of rare Crimson... The following unique jewels can no longer be obtained. First, Snow Frozen Trail. I mean, I thought that the Threshold Jewels are a cool idea, just poor execution, I guess. The Hazardous Research unique jewel no longer has with at least 14 intelligent sparks fire 2 additional projectiles and reduce spark duration. Existing items can be updated with a Divine Orb. The jewel's purpose is now only to enable firing spark projectiles in a circle if you want this behavior. Oh, that's pretty cool. The Ring of Blades unique jewel no longer has Ethereal Knives fire 5 additional projectiles. Firing Ethereal Knives in circle if you want this behavior. Okay, so this is good. Oh, Reap is not buffed. And it used Unleash, which is severely nerfed for the spell that are not buffed. Yeah. That's a good point, yeah. It was nerfed by 20% less, right? Yeah, 20% less damage at level 20. Okay, the Spreading Rot is now limited to 1. The change affects existing items. No longer has with at least 40 intelligence. Blight has 50% increased hinder duration. Instead, now has with 40 intelligence and radius. Blight has 30% reduced cast speed. Why do you want reduced cast speed? Look at this. Is this... Is this not mental or what? Look at this added damage effectiveness for Freezing Pulse and Frostbolt. Like, is this not mental? Like, you could play just Elemental Frostbolt. Just slap on, or even, what is that? Forbidden Shackle. Right? Just slap on as much flat damage as you can, and plus they change the base is already pretty fucking pog. So they said Threshold Jewels, but this is just change of skills. But like, how mental is this? Freezing Pulse, 330, like this is really mental. Ice Noah? Oh, okay, it did get buffed also. Interesting, okay. So, some of these numbers are huge. I mean, but even the Frostbolt itself, the number, and Ice, was not Ice Noah, but that... Oh my god, what's the name of this thing? Blanking right now. Freezing Pulse. Both of these, just on the face value, they look really, really good. They look really good. 220, whoa, oh my god. They really went ham on that sucker. Lower the power of the Unleash support, because it is the single most impactful support for the kind of build that benefits from aforementioned buffs. It creates limited options for these builds by feeling like the only option. With these builds otherwise being buffed, there should be more build options available than before. Sure. Lower the damage from totem, trap, mine, and trigger effects to balance out the buff to the spells. Okay. The intention is that in general, these builds should deal the same damage at higher levels as they did previously. While at face value, these changes will look like nerfs. Where have I seen this before? For the most part, they shouldn't be due to the buffs to spells. However, we do acknowledge that there will be a small number of builds that will be negatively affected by these changes. Additionally, because we've adjusted some support gems that multiply the number of traps thrown, we've provided some compensation for this on non-cooldown trap skills like Fire Trap and Lightning Trap. So I've seen this kind of, I feel like it's exact same sentence for the past 3 Balance Manifestos, I think. I feel like, no, this is, okay, this is where we saw this for Ignites. They said, on the face value, it might look like nerfs because of the way they change things around. for ignites, you know, like they nerfed the cluster jewels, they nerfed the things on the skills, and then but then they gave us options on the more options on the gear, you know, and they buffed the normal jewels, and they're like, well, if you get all of those things, it will be the same. Dude, come on! Like, so the only way I can make ignites work is literally get the perfect gear on every piece that scales ignite damage, and that's the only way I can make it the same as it was before. Like, how is that not a nerf? I'm so salty about ignites. Still. I'm so salty. It was my favorite. It was such a beautiful build. Oh my god. It's giving me flashbacks. Lower the damage of player ignite by 28%. To partially offset the damage increase that many ignite applying spells have received. For the majority of high-level spell gems, this is a slight damage buff when combined with the above changes. Burning Arrow, Armageddon Brand, Explosive Arrow, and several other skills have received changes to compensate for the lower damage of Ignite. Attack skills and a small number of spells that are not typically aligned with ignites will have weaker ignites as a result of this change. Yeah, like ignite was so fucking OP before. I mean, there are some things that detonate ignite, right? I guess is still alive, but we plan to introduce a mechanic for ignite damage with melee attack skills to give some unconventional ignite builds a new option for enhancing ignites. Details about this will be included in the patch notes. Cool. I want to check discharge actually. No discharge? Okay, so they nerfed slightly fire. Damage buffed on the top damage, okay. Whoa. What the fuck is this number? Fire trap ignite build? Let's go. 260 effectiveness also, like mo cheebs. All the burn damage. Holy shit, wait. Wait. What does it say exactly about? Oh, ignite compensation changes, okay. Armageddon brand. Bunch of added effectiveness of added damage. Like, holy moly, they've really gone pretty ham with that added damage effectiveness on some of these spells. 200% of added effectiveness. How did people even scale Burning Arrow before? I've never played this build. Jesus, 300%. A lower base attack speed. Higher mana cost. Explosive concoction. Ignite damage over time multiplier with ignite if charges were consumed. Okay. Oh, fire burst. Wait, did they buff fire burst again? Now has a cooldown 1.5 seconds. Okay, so what? I think Fire Burst has gone through like freaking roller coaster. First, when they introduced Fire Burst, I think, or when they buffed it so it became relevant, it was 1 second cooldown. Then they put it to 1.5 second cooldown because Fire Burst was too OP. They put the higher cooldown and lowered the damage, and now they're back on. Then they lowered the cooldown again because nobody was playing it this league, right? And now they're putting the cooldown back up because I guess they're buffing the damage again. Yep. And lowering the damage effectiveness. Ugh. Valve Flame Blast now deals 100%. Wait, Flame Blast? They didn't say anything about Flame Blast itself. Okay. Very interesting. Looking forward. Maybe I'll make an Ignite build. Again. Make a Fire Trap, maybe? Seems pretty good. Okay, bow builds. Well, another thing to keep in mind is that they are changing the endgame. Okay, we're gonna have a new endgame boss slash bosses. So who knows what kind of builds are gonna be more attuned to kill it. You know, I mean, generally speaking, every build can do every boss, in my opinion. I don't think there is a build that can't do Awakener or Maven, but there are some builds that are definitely better at it. Hit-based bow attacks. Hit-based bow attacks require an unreasonable amount, this is what I've been always saying, amount of investment to reach competitive levels of damage. Builds that want to achieve this must utilize critical strikes, and many skills can't sufficiently invest in this mechanic without sacrificing defensive options. Okay, solution. Give bows the same local added damage modifiers as two-handed melee weapons do, which are much stronger than the bow-specific modifiers used previously. Improve the damage of bows in general, with some base types getting up to 50% more base damage than before. Improve the mastery options on bow passive clusters. Make a number of improvements to quivers so that bows can receive much more damage from rare quivers. We have reworked the quiver progression with new quiver types that provide diverse set of useful implicits. Okay, so new bases. We have greatly improved added physical damage modifiers and quivers. Cool. Have replaced elemental damage with attack skills modifiers and quivers with increased damage with bow skills to allow quivers to roll another way to improve skills dealing physical and chaos damage. Yay, this is good for Caustic Arrow. We have taken the +1 arrow prefix of influence quiver modifiers and added to a score modifier pool as a suffix. It's cool. Lots of added base damage should be good. I mean, should be good. I guess should be good, yeah. I haven't played a bow build. I mean, better question is, have I ever played a bow build? Maybe one of the first leagues I played, honestly. I always find bows to be really unrewarding. You have to invest a lot. It doesn't... Like, even if you go through the story fine, right? It drops off in maps really... Like, it's not a league starter build. Bows is just not a league to me, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't play bows, so maybe people who play bows all the time, they know all the tips and tricks you have to do, but I can't league start with it, and then by the time I roll my second character, there's something else that already catches my eye, because also it's cheaper and stronger, you know? Okay, specifics. Instead of their own line of modifiers, bows now use the two-handed weapon version of local added fire, cold, lightning, and chaos damage prefix modifiers. Now I wonder if this is gonna be good enough. I mean, a lot of... That was just spells. Did they change bow skills? I don't know anything about bow builds. This is what I was saying at the beginning. I need to watch some people who know about bows. And I even watched... so I saw a comment from Bridonly. I think she does play bow builds quite regularly. And she said that they... On one hand, they gave you... So it seems like, wow, all of these changes, great, amazing, right? Finally, bow builds are going to be relevant, but then they nerf Hydrosphere, which was actually making it bearable, it seems, for a lot of skills. So now the bow builds stay the same because the buff you get from this is negated by the nerf to Hydrosphere. Quivers can no longer roll increased elemental damage with attacks, instead it rolls increased damage with both skills, which is... Caustic Arrow buffs, guys. An example of the new higher tier modifier with Quivers is 43 to 50 increased damage with both skills. Essence of Woe no longer rolls elemental damage. Deafening Essence will provide 43 to 50% damage with bows. Quiver can now roll bow attacks, fire additional projectile suffix. The Shaper and Hunter influence prefix versions of this modifier can no longer be rolled, which is actually kind of good. because that's just less mod pool, right? Queries no longer share the same modified progression for add physical damage to attacks as amulets. They have now their own lines. Highest modifier can go up to 39, which is, I think, almost double to the one from amulet, so that's pretty cool. For bleed. So for bleed. And I guess ignite and chaos damage over times. These changes are actually very good for bows. Right? Like who actually plays a physical bow build that is not bleed? Like who plays that? What kind of build is that even? Because always when people go physical is because they... That's what she said. That's when they go bleed, right? Okay. Quivers can now roll an additional tier of accuracy. Cool. Or impale. That's true, impale. I mean, this is a huge buff, actually, for bleed and impale, because the bow bases are also getting 50% more base damage than before. So bleed and impale? Wait, you can impale with bows, yeah? Yeah, you can. This is a huge buff. Interesting. Right. Quivers and Dexterity Shields can roll additional tier of attack speed up to 16%. Essence of Zeal has been updated accordingly. The defending Essence of Zeal provides up to 15% increased attack speed on Quivers. Cool. Quivers can now roll a Malicious Prefix that adds flat chaos damage. Cool. I replaced the Bow Mastery stats that gave movement speed while phasing and phasing on kill. We've also replaced the mastery that gave increased damage while you are wielding a bow and have a totem. New masteries. Increases in reductions to arrow speed also apply to damage with bows. Cool. 100% to accuracy rating per green socket on your bow. Cool. Increase Mirage Archer duration. 100% instead of 50. Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow have 100% increased cooldown recovery rate. Ah. Maybe this Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow build is gonna be alive again. New Quivers. Let's see. Primal Arrow Quiver. Increase elemental damage with attack skills. Okay, so that's where they put that. Heavy Arrow Quiver. Bunch of added physical damage. Nice. Whoa. 10 to 15% physical damage as extra chaos damage. While Arrow Quiver. Cool. Attack speed. Fire damage. Crit. Okay, so these are the same, but these guys are cool. Now, Broadhead, we had Broadhead already. Was there already attack speed one? These are new for sure. Unique quivers will be reassigned to a base type that is more appropriate for them at their level. Hey, cool. This is nice. Sources of added damage. Added cold lightning and chaos damage supports. Gems provide significant unconditional added damage that outclasses many damage options available to some builds, most notably bow builds. By comparison, many other sources of added damage are relatively weak. Okay, lower the strength of unconditional added damage support gems and raise the strength of local added damage and added damage to spells on weapons. Okay, so here this is another one of those things, like, they buffed this, right? And if everything else stayed the same, this would be a huge buff for bows. But now, they are nerfing the added damage supports. They are nerfing Hydrosphere. They're even, we'll get to there. They're even nerfing marks, right? So, overall, I mean, how big is this damage increase overall gonna be for just like an on-hit bow build? How big is it gonna be? It's a buff if you have perfect rolls on weapons. Yeah. I mean, these things, like, these flat damage they're not going away, right? They still are gonna be there, just worse. Well, this added chaos damage support is slightly worse, only. So, Awakened added. Oh my god, Awakened one is trash. At least you get +1 to gems, right? Cold damage. Okay, added cold damage, not too bad. Awakened one. Yeah. It's okay, I guess. I mean, they're not nerfed that massively. Local added damage weapons mod changes. Local added fire, cold, lightning, and physical damage prefix modifiers on weapons have been increased by roughly 8% at the highest tier and increased by more at lower tiers. Difference between tiers have lowered so that there is less of a jump between tiers as you progress towards the highest. So, but these are the rolls we will get on bows now. Yeah, I don't think this is actually gonna make me start bows. Unless it's something like a bleed. Okay, so caustic arrow or bleed. Very good. Very, very good. All the rest of the riffraff, not so much. Anything that relied on Hydrosphere, forget about it. With all the other compounding nerves, I mean, maybe slightly better now, who knows? Who knows the numbers, right? Caustic arrow is whatever, as it has its own damage. It's not whatever, because they changed the mod. For example, on quivers, you get, instead of having elemental damage, it's just damage to bows. And bleed, it's even better, because they buffed the base. Some bases are getting up to 50% more base damage. So bleed is even better than it was, because it didn't rely on Hydrosphere. It doesn't really rely on any of those added damage supports. And on top of that, you get like insane base damage improvement, so I mean, I don't really know much about bows. Of course. I keep saying that. But from all of these changes, the only thing that really stands out is that the biggest winner was bleed bow that came out from all of this on the other side. It benefits from all of the changes. Just overall. Local added damage weapon mod changes. Yeah. So these are buffed slightly. And tier 3 and tier 2 mods also have been buffed by 26 and 40% respectively. So basically, these are gonna be the new rolls on the bows, right? Look at physical damage. Physical damage now provides you 34 to 47, 72 to 84 on 200 weapon, which is slightly better. So this is gonna be the new value. I mean, there's some sexy fizz bows could happen. With combining this with base damage also changing, pretty good. Bleed bow maybe is the way to league start. Bleed bow was already a decent build, because you can play it as a champ also. Or gladiator, right? They didn't nerf. So my predictions for nerfs, because I did it on Rayclast Weekly. Last Rayclast Weekly, I finished filming it before I read the manifesto, because I didn't want to get influenced, because I wanted to do my nerf predictions. And of course I predicted Seismic Trap to be nerfed. And I even say, I hope they don't nerf traps and mines and such. And what do? They nerf traps and mines as well. Because of all of those spells getting buffed. So of course they nerfed. Nah, I didn't jinx it. That was obvious that they're gonna nerf Seismic Trap. But I hope they won't nerf traps in mines. But they are nerfing them slightly. Honestly, this is one of the things. Like, a lot of things are gonna get caught. They will be collateral damage, right? Because they didn't get buffed. Yet the things they use get nerfed. Okay, so this is... yeah, Bleed Bow. Let's go. Spell added... Oh yeah, spell added damage also got buffed. So now we just need to do this and play the highest effectiveness spell and wreck everything. Okay, skill interaction with Hydrosphere. Hey, everybody's favorite part. Certain skills that have a chaining or shockwave effect can multiply their damage against single target by also hitting Hydrosphere. This skill should not be balanced around using an off-class or off-theme skill like this. Maintaining the ability to use this interaction would prevent us from improving certain bow skills and hit damage spells without their maximum damage output being too high. Also, right, that affects spells too. So, all of these buffs to spells is a big joke. Okay, it's not so grim. It's not so grim, I guess. But there are definitely some things where, you know, maybe some supports got nerfed and so on and so forth. Because the base damage increased, yet you were using Hydrosphere to actually make it work, and now you can't make it work. So, Hydrosphere basically doubled your damage, wasn't it? Or something close to that. For single target. Spells, attacks, bow skills, right? All of those benefited from this, and only spells really got buffed. So everything else that use this interaction are in the gutter. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a huge nerf for those things. You might be saying, well, they were unreasonably strong, but like, were they? Were they? Okay, and here's the next thing. This is another one. This that felt to me like motherfuckers. Triggering marks. Problem: when applied through mark on hit skills or unique items that trigger them, marks are far more efficient for clearing and easier to sustain on boss fights. Like, that's a bad thing. Builds that don't have access to these high-end items are disadvantaged in like, how is this even like a relevant thing? How is this even a reason to nerf this? Builds that don't have access to these high-end items. First of all, the mark on hit ring is not a super high-end item, first of all. And like, builds that don't have access, how are there any builds that really don't have access to this? Everybody has access to this. This is completely nonsensical to me. This was like, you feel like it's a buff. It's not a buff for spells. Make marks permanent, so yeah, okay. No, the mark change itself. Mark change itself is a buff. Yeah, I agree with that. The mark change itself, that it's a permanent, is good for single target, right? Okay, so make marks permanent so they only require single cost for boss encounters. This is fine. Add a new support gem that lets attacks trigger marks on hitting a rare or unique target. Attacks! This is a complete nerf for spells. Because which spell is gonna use an attack to trigger mark? Well, you can self-cast marks, I guess. But it was so much easier before. This is a nerf for spells. Okay, mark curses are now permanent. Yeah, mark curse skills no longer have the duration tag. Great. Add a new dexterity support gem. Mark on hit. Trigger supported mark skill. This is fine. This is buff for attack skills, I guess. Even though, is it a buff? Like, you have to use 2 sockets now. Before that, you had just one line on one ring. So, to me, is it really a buff? It's like, now you will be able to get a higher effectiveness of mark, I guess, for using 2 sockets versus the one on the ring. Yeah. The day that thy focal point ascendancy passive skill no longer has marks you inflict are not removed from dying enemies. Instead, it now has your marks transferred to another enemy when marked enemy dies. This is cool. The influence modifier that trigger a mark when you hit a rare or unique enemy have been removed from modifier pool, so it can no longer be obtained. And they just make you even more socket starved. Granted, there are probably builds who have the free sockets, like you can put this in. But for spells, it becomes a completely self-casting. Right? And the beauty of the ring was that you could mark most rare enemies. So let's say you have a spell build that has projectile, right? There was that skill. There is this skill. No, there's this mark that once you hit a marked target, it chains from it or something, or splits from it. It was a sniper's mark, right? So that is a huge boost for clear speed, even if it's not, like, let's say, you might say, well, marks are meant mainly for, like, really tough targets, but that was a really good, useful thing for clear speed for spells. So, for spells, unless of course you use some kind of trigger mechanic with attacks, so on and so forth, like, but let's say you are going, now that they buffed all those spells, you're going pure self-cast spell build, without any of these kind of like shenanigans. You have to self-cast the mark. First of all, you lose a socket, and spell builds are generally starved for sockets. And if you want to make it automated, it's not even automated, because you have to, for spell builds, it's never gonna be automated, because you have to cast your spells, and then you have to either trigger with an attack. Ugh, just so annoying. So annoying. So they buff spells, and then they do this. Like, this is a nerf. Okay, I'm stopped being triggered now. It's so annoying. Fuck. For attacks, you can still trigger it on rares with the support. Okay, fortification. Oh, damn it. Did I mention fortification on my nerf list? I don't know. Okay, problem. Fortification gain being scaled by the damage dealt by a fortifying hit means that hitting monsters with very high amount of damage reduction, just as in Azurite Mine, the simulacrum, or against monsters that have just been spawned by certain league mechanic, can grant little to no fortification, even for builds with very high damage. Alright, I mentioned this when I was talking about my first Rayclass Weekly. I talked about this, that this is kind of like a nerf to fortify in general, the new way it works, and they actually address it here. So this is a buff for fortify. So fortification generation now ignores the target damage reduction. This is a buff. This is a good change, because previously there could be situations where, you know how fortify worked before. You hit once, you get fortify, and now you can hit and not get full fortify, not even near it, right? You have to hit and I'm not saying it takes a long time, but still, it's like a big part of your defense, especially if you invest in fortify or fortification stacks. Not getting all those stacks in one go, like it used to work, is a nerf, right? So this is a buff. This is better than it used to be. But again, I only played champ and I had perma fortify, so I don't really know how it worked with like stacking manually fortification stacks. So I'm not a big fan of the new fortify changes, generally speaking. Skill balance. Problem. Detonate Dead builds can gain significantly more damage by diluting the pool of desecratable monsters with high life specters. Because of how Desecrate selected monsters, the fewer monsters occurring in the area, the more damage Detonate Dead dealt. Okay. Solution. Change Desecrate to have a fixed chance to spawn a Spectre corpse. This means Detonate Dead's damage should be more consistent based on which area in the game you are in. This also means there is no incentive to bring multiple different high life Spectre varieties, although you can still benefit from bringing one high life Spectre into the area. Desecrate and Corpse Walk now has a static 15% chance to spawn a spectral corpse, rather than 2 times relative weighing compared to all other possible corpse types. Okay, well, people who play Detonate Dead, I mean, what do you think of these changes? It doesn't seem like too bad. It does nothing to address Detonate Dead Ignite, which is why it was OP. Yeah, but doesn't Detonate Dead Ignite scale off of like corpse explosions? I guess you still are guaranteed to get at least one live corpse or whatever, and then you apply the ignite and everything dies anyways, right? Nothing changes. General opinion is DD hit is that ignite still shines. Yes, because you only, I guess you only apply that one ignite, right? And because you still have some high life corpses, you would still apply that one big, just need one big life corpse and they dead, yeah. Cool. Nice. Anybody who wants to league start? I mean, I could play this build, honestly. I haven't played Detonate Dead ever. Okay, problem. Seismic Trap has very high damage scaling, as its damage scales with increases to area effect. Increasing the area of Seismic Trap impacts greatly increases the chance of multiple large bursts hitting a target. As area increases don't affect the area where the impacts can occur. Though this mechanic is interesting, it provides far too much damage for the investment cost, and the damage of the skill would have to be lowered to buy so much to offset this that the skill would be very weak without the overlapping mechanic. Solution. Make modifiers to area effect apply to area Seismic Trap's burst can target at a ratio. This will slightly improve the area coverage of the skill while lowering the damage growth from increase to area effect without removing their damage benefit entirely. Okay, I guess this seems reasonable. It was redunculous. But I don't know exactly what this ratio, like, depends on what this ratio is, I guess, all of these things. There's no numbers. There's no nothing. So, who knows? But it seems reasonable. Toxic Rain has very strong damage over time and a low build cost compared to other bow builds. It also benefits from some of the quiver and mastery changes made to improve hit-based bow skills. Solution. Reduce the high-level damage of Toxic Rain in order to partially negate the improvements to quivers and bring it more in line with other skills. Toxic Rain deals slightly lower base damage. Unique item balance. Oh, March of the Legion. March of the Legion is a very low-cost method to gain 4 extra auras on some builds due to the changes where mana is not being required in order to cast an aura. It also took full advantage of the Supreme Ego Keystone in a way that goes against the intent of the mechanic and gain a significant amount of power in the process. Solution. Rework the blessing mechanic of March of the Legion to limit the number of blessings you can have to 1. Yeah, nobody's gonna use this boots. Change the skill to cost mana instead of temporary reserving mana. The process of making this change also highlighted a number of problems with other mechanics, which has led to a ripple effect of other changes being required. Release a blessing as a support gem. Yeah. Why would you use this March of the Legion boots if you have blessing support gem now? I guess if you want to save some sockets, but... To make the mechanic available to builds that are not using the unique item. This is intended to be useful for high mana used characters who wish to leave their mana unreserved and for characters using the Blood Magic Keystone. Improve the aura level granted by March of the Legion so the item excels at using a blessing aura. Remove Mortal Conviction and the life passives from behind the Blood Magic Keystone and make a Mortal Conviction style support gem that makes an aura free and prevents you reserving mana. It will be mutually exclusive with blessing skills, so you won't be able to use both simultaneously. This support gem provides slightly less aura effect to the skill than the blessing support, but has no cost or upkeep involved. Change blood magic to also grant 10% more life to compensate for the removal of the efficient life passives behind the keystone. Change Supreme Ego to not limit you to one aura and instead give more aura effect based on how much mana an aura reserves. This is, I guess, cool. The full values for all these changes will be available in the patch notes. Yay! I mean, it's cool that they're adding new support gems and stuff like that, but again, this is my problem. They're adding more and more support gems and, you know, things that you could put in your sockets, yet there's only so many sockets you have. Right? There's only so many sockets. Like, where are you supposed to put all of this stuff? Okay, problem. The Shade Form skill, granted by the Shroud of the Lightless and Replica Eternity Shroud unique items, could, with heavy investment, have its duration extended to be longer than its cooldown, granting permanent immunity to physical damage. It's not surprised. You're not supposed to put all this stuff. What do you mean? Why are you giving me stuff? Why can't I use the stuff? I want the stuff. So this was expected. Change Shade Form's cooldown to pause while the skill is active. Reduce the cooldown from 45 to 40 seconds. So this is dead. I mean, I guess you could time it. But then if you can't use the same build because once you run out of duration on the thing, you would die. The damage reduction granted by the Strength of Blood keystone from the Lethal Pride unique jewel correctly scaled with modifiers of to life recovery rate, allowing it to reach 100% and for characters to be immune to damage. I didn't even know this, but I knew about this guy, but not about this guy. Strength of Blood's damage reduction no longer scales with modifiers to life recovery rate. Reap. Problem. The Dancing Dervish unique item has no accessible way to sustain its mechanic on boss fights, mostly due to rampage stacks being difficult to activate in the boss fight and the summoned minion behavior feeling sluggish while clearing. This is great. Dancing Dervish is fun. Change the Dancing Dervish to cause you to gain rampage on melee hits and improve its minion behavior. Dancing Dervish Rampage modifiers has been replaced with melee hits count as rampage kills, allowing players to easily build up a new rampage streak without having to kill monsters. This stat will not affect you while rampaging, as Dancing Dervish disables itself on rampage, but the existing behavior where the minion generates rampage kills on unique hits is still present. The minions summoned by Dancing Dervish now use the new channeled version of Cyclone. Their movement speed and AI have been also adjusted to feel more proactive while clearing. This is great. Alright, problem. Perfidy's Dread Banner Fortification duration mod was causing issues with the new fortification system that could not be reconciled. Solution. Replace Perfidy's Dread Banner mod. I wonder what could not be reconciled. They don't say it. Perfidy no longer has Dread Banner has 100 to 200% increased fortification duration. Instead, it now has Dread Banner grants an additional 2 to 4 to maximum fortification when placing the banner. The change affects existing items. I don't know if this is good. Did anybody use Perfidy? Problem. Void Fletcher outclassed rare quivers for many builds. Oh. Okay, solution. Review the damage of Void Fletcher arrows. This balance is still being reviewed in comparison with all the other changes to rare quivers, so specifics will be included in the patch notes when confirmed. There we go. There we go. That's the manifesto. Thoughts, feelings, conclusions, guys? Thoughts and feelings?